There's a version of mid-August that I think a lot of you will recognize. It's about 7 in the evening. The building is mostly empty. Somebody is in a classroom moving desks into a configuration, standing back, looking at it, and moving them again. Third arrangement that day. And if you asked her what she was doing, she'd say she was setting up her room. That's not what she was doing. She was trying to feel ready, and the desks were the only part of the situation that would move when she pushed on it. I've been that person. I've also supervised that person and coached that person and been the person who walked past the doorway at 7:30 and said something encouraging that probably didn't help. And the thing I've come to believe after enough Augusts is that she was already ready. She knew what she was doing. She'd done it for years and she was good at it. She was just tired, and there is no arrangement of furniture that fixes tired. So that's where I want to start this season. Not with what a strong start looks like, because you already know what a strong start looks like. With the more useful question, which is what you build when you're beginning the year as the person you actually are right now in the condition you're actually in.
Welcome to Little Bits of TLC, the podcast for school-based leaders, practitioners, and specialists supporting students with complex academic, behavioral, social, emotional, and mental health needs. Join our host, Heather Volchko, as each episode brings together behavioral science, system thinking, and real school experience to explore student behavior, special education, classroom strategies, educator well-being, and sustainable systems that help students and staff thrive. Whether you're in the classroom, supporting students behind the scenes, or leading change across your school or district, our goal is to provide practical, research-informed ideas that you can put into practice right away. This is Little Bits of TLC.
This one is for teachers, for paraprofessionals, and for specialists. Speech, OT, PT, school psych, behavior, social work, anyone carrying a caseload across more rooms than you can reasonably be in. And more specifically, it's for those of you heading into this year already worn down. Maybe last year was hard in a way that hasn't fully resolved. Maybe your summer wasn't much of a summer because you were teaching summer school or working a second job or caregiving or finishing coursework. Maybe you had a genuinely restorative break and you're still walking in with a knot in your stomach, which happens to plenty of people and doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. If you're a building or district leader listening, you're welcome here, and I think you'll get something from it. But I want to be straight that I'm not talking to you in this one. I'm talking to the people whose Thursday this actually is. There will be episodes aimed squarely at you, and this isn't one of them. Quick word on what this show is, since this is the first one. Once a month, I'll do an episode like this on my own, and in between, we'll have conversations with people from our consultancy and with partners doing this work in their own settings. The through line across all of it is the distance between what we know works and what actually happens in a building on a normal day, and what it takes to close that distance without pretending the conditions are better than they are. By the end of the next 25 minutes, you'll have a specific 5-minute thing you can do this week that will tell you more about where to put your effort than any amount of planning will. It won't make your year lighter. I want to be honest about that up front. It will make your decisions about the year smaller and more accurate. And in my experience, that's the part that actually holds. So let's talk about why August does this to us specifically. August has a structural feature that no other month in the school year has. The students are new, the rosters are new, nothing has gone wrong yet because nothing has happened yet, and that produces a genuine and measurable psychological effect. There's research on this that I find genuinely useful on what behavioral scientists call temporal landmarks, dates that feel like boundaries, like New Year's, birthdays, the start of a semester. The finding is that people are meaningfully more motivated to pursue goals right after one of those landmarks. It's not imaginary and it's not a character weakness. Your brain treats the boundary as a separation between the person who did the last stretch and the person who's about to do the next one. And that separation is motivating. Here's the part that matters, and it's the part that rarely gets quoted. The effect is about initiation. It's about starting. The research does not show that it sustains anything. It gets you moving and then it goes away generally within a few weeks, which means the elevated energy you're feeling right now, or feeling the absence of and worrying about, is a real resource with a short and fairly predictable expiration. somewhere around week 5 or 6, it's gone. Not because you failed, because that's what that kind of energy does. And this is where the trouble starts because of what most of us do with that window. We use the one period of the year with elevated energy to build systems that require ongoing energy to run, the behavior system with the daily tracking component, the new communication routine with families, the reorganized data collection that has 6 steps, all of it designed in August by a version of you operating well above your own average for a year that will be lived at your average or below it in February. The system isn't badly designed. It's designed for the wrong person. It's designed for the August you who has slept, has no current crisis, and has not yet met the student who is going to reorganize your entire year. There's a second thing happening underneath that one. The students are new. You are not new. You are carrying everything from last year, the relationships that ended abruptly in June, the case you're still thinking about, the accumulated administrative weight, and whatever your body is doing about all of that. But the calendar is built as though the reset is total. There is no structure anywhere in a school year that acknowledges that last year happened to you. So you walk in carrying an accumulated load into a system that's treating you as though your counter went back to zero. And then entirely reasonably, you conclude that the discrepancy is about you, that other people came back fresher, that you should be further along than you are. I'd say something similar to the specialists specifically. If you're covering 3 buildings, a large chunk of your August is not setting up a space. It's negotiating access to other people's spaces on other people's schedules before those schedules exist. You're being asked to build foundations in an environment where you don't control the ground. That's a genuinely different problem from the one a classroom teacher has. And it's worth naming because a lot of back to school advice assumes a room. And to the paraprofessionals, you may be walking into a year where you don't yet know your assignment, your students, or who you'll be working alongside. Being told to establish strong foundations when you don't have the information to plan with is not helpful advice, it's just pressure. What I'm going to offer later is scaled so it works even when most of the picture is missing, because for a lot of you in August, it is. There are 4 things people typically do with the August feeling, and I want to go through all of them because I've done every one and I don't think any of them are foolish. The first is the overhaul, new organization system, new behavior system, new binder, new everything. This year, I'm going to have it together. 2 problems with this, and the first one you can probably guess. It's designed at peak capacity for a year, lived at average capacity. So it works beautifully for 4 weeks and then becomes a source of guilt because now, in addition to the underlying problem, you also have a half-abandoned system reminding you daily that you abandoned it. The second problem is quieter and does more damage. When you overhaul, you throw out things that were working because they were tangled up with things that weren't. Most of what functions in a classroom or on a caseload is invisible to the person running it. You don't notice the transition routine that works because it works, so it doesn't ask anything of you. Then you rebuild the whole morning and discover in October that something you weren't tracking has stopped happening and you can't reconstruct what it was. The second is the resolution. This year I'll have better boundaries. This year I won't take work home. This year I'll be more patient at the end of the day. I have a lot of sympathy for this one, and I want to be careful with it because it usually comes from something real, but it's an identity change with no mechanism attached. Nothing in the environment is different. The caseload is the same size. The coverage gaps are in the same places. The meeting still runs past contract time. Asking yourself to behave differently inside identical conditions puts the entire burden of the change on your willpower at a moment in the year when your willpower is temporarily inflated and about to return to normal. And when it fails, it doesn't fail neutrally. It confirms something you already suspected about yourself, which is a real cost that we don't usually count. The third is copying someone else's setup. The room from Instagram, the system a colleague described at a conference, the data collection approach a person 2 grade levels up swears by. This fails for a specific and non-obvious reason. You can see the artifact, You cannot see the conditions that made the artifact possible. That teacher may have a co teacher. She may be in her 11th year with the same grade level and the same standards. She may have a principal who protects her plan time in a way that yours doesn't, or a caseload 8 student smaller than yours, or no child at home under 4. You're importing the visible part of somebody else's system into a set of conditions it was never built for, and then reading the mismatch as a fact about your competence. The fourth is waiting. I'll get to it once things settle down. They don't settle. The load changes shape. September's chaos becomes October's evaluation cycle, becomes November's referrals. There's no arrival point. And the cost of waiting is that you spend the one window with elevated energy in a holding pattern. And by the time you feel ready to make a change, the resource you needed for it has expired. Now, notice what all four of those have in common. Every one of them treats August as the moment to replace something, replace the system, replace the habit, replace your approach with a better person's approach, or wait for a better moment to replace it. Replacement is expensive. It costs energy you're going to need in November. It discards things that were working, and it starts from an assumption I want to push on directly that what you have right now is the wrong foundation. For most of the people listening to this, it isn't. You've been doing this. There is a substantial amount already running. You just can't see it because functioning things are invisible and because nobody has ever asked you to write them down.
Looking for something that actually fits your life? TLC University is here for that. Each week, we spotlight something different. A webinar with real-world insights, a hangout-style interview, and a hands-on workshop or a Q&A where we answer your questions. It's flexible, it's self-paced, and most come with CEUs. So whether you're looking to grow, reflect, or just listen in, there's something here for you. And it's all in one place. university.thresholdlearning.org. That's where you'll find show notes, professional blogs, a full catalog of ACE-accredited courses, and downloadable resources. It all just keeps growing. So whether you're walking the dog, commuting, or taking a breather between the daily grind, TLC University meets you where you are. Head to university.thresholdlearning.org and check out what's new this week. See you then. You know that feeling when you've tried everything you can think of and the student is still struggling? Everyone's putting in the effort, but it feels like nobody has the time, resources, or roadmap to figure out what comes next. That's where Threshold Learning Nonprofit comes in. We partner with schools to help tackle the challenges that don't have simple answers. Whether it's supporting a student with complex needs, completing functional behavior assessments, strengthening intervention programs, or helping teams get on the same page, our focus is always the same: practical solutions that work in real schools with real people. We're not here to hand you a binder and disappear. We're here to help schools build the confidence, knowledge, and systems to keep supporting students long after we're gone. If you're listening and thinking, my school could really use something like that, let your administrator know about Threshold Learning Nonprofit or visit our website to learn more, because every student deserves a chance to thrive in schools and beyond.
So here's what I'd offer instead. I call it the honest baseline, and it has 3 parts. You name what's holding, you name what's costing, and you pick one move you can actually finish. Let me take them one at a time because the second one is where most of the value is, and it's the one people get wrong. First, what's holding, what is already working, even partially, even imperfectly, even if it only works on Tuesdays. 3 things written down, specific enough that somebody else standing in your room could observe them. Not my kids like me. That's probably true and it's not usable. Something more like the last 10 minutes of the day run without me directing them. Or my morning greeting is consistent and I haven't skipped it. Or for a specialist, I have a working relationship with 2 of the 4 teachers whose rooms I need and they let me in without a negotiation. 2 reasons this part matters, and the first one is defensive. If you can't name what's holding, you will build on top of it and break it without noticing. That's the failure mode of the overhaul. Naming it protects it. The second reason is that most of you are carrying an inaccurate picture of your own competence into September, and the inaccuracy is not in the flattering direction. Writing down 3 functioning things is not a self-esteem exercise. It's a correction to a measurement error, and the measurement error has consequences because it's the thing that makes you overhaul something that didn't need overhauling. Second, what's costing? And here's the distinction I want you to hold on to because I think it's the most useful thing in this episode. There is a difference between something that is imperfect and something that is costing you. Imperfect means it bothers you when you look at it. Your bulletin board is dated, your files are in three places, your desk is a situation. These things generate a low hum of dissatisfaction and they are very visible. And that visibility is exactly why they attract the overhaul impulse. Costing means it consumes something real every day or every week time, energy, or student learning. Those are almost never the same list. And the overhaul impulse reliably targets the first list because those items are visible, bounded, and satisfying to fix. You can reorganize a closet on a Saturday and feel the difference immediately. Meanwhile, the actual costs go untouched because they're harder and less visible, a transition that eats 8 minutes 4 times a day, which is over 2 hours a week of instruction gone. A data collection system you quietly avoid, which means you're going into meetings without current data and compensating with recall. A student whose plan hasn't been meaningfully revisited since March, who you think about on the drive home. Here's the test. Can you say what it costs in minutes or in a specific outcome you could describe to someone else? If you can, it's costing you. If the only answer is that it bothers you, it may just be bothering you and it can keep bothering you until October. One thing to write down here, not three, one, because the point of the exercise is to make the next decision smaller, and giving yourself three costly problems in the first week of school just recreates the overhaul with better vocabulary. Third, one move you can finish, sized so that you could complete it inside a week using time you already have, not extra time, not time you're going to create by being more disciplined, time that currently exists in your week. And I want to put the emphasis on finish rather than on how much it accomplishes, because that's counterintuitive and it's the part that does the work. A finished small change gives you two things. It gives you real information about your actual conditions, which is worth more than a plan because you now know something true about what's possible in your building this year rather than what you hoped. And it establishes in the first weeks that you're someone who completes what you start this year. That's not a motivational point, it's practical. The alternative pattern, where September is a graveyard of half built systems, is genuinely demoralizing by November. And it's demoralizing in a way that makes the next attempt harder. So, if the thing costing you is that 8 minute transition, the move is not redesigning your transitions. The move might be for 1 week, I position myself by the door instead of my desk during that transition, and I watch what actually happens that's finishable. And it will probably tell you the real problem is something you hadn't considered. Now, the honest part, and I'd rather say it than leave it out, some of what's costing you is not yours to fix. If your caseload is 42, that's not a baseline problem. If you cover 3 buildings with no travel time built into your schedule, or you're the only para in a room that needs two, no personal system solves that. I'm not going to hand you a framework and imply that the constraint is your organization. But the baseline is still worth doing in those conditions. And here's why: it separates what's yours from what needs to go to somebody with authority over it. And when you go to that person, the difference between I'm overwhelmed and this specific scheduling gap costs me 4 hours a week, and here's where it lands, is enormous. Not because your exhaustion isn't legitimate, because specifics are actionable and general distress unfairly but reliably isn't. The baseline gives you the specifics. 4 practical notes on doing this: do it on paper, not in your head on the drive home. 10 minutes, something you can physically look at. The written version is different from the mental version, and it's different in a useful direction because you can't quietly revise it. Don't do it on day one, around day 5 to 10, once you've met the actual students rather than the roster. A baseline taken before you have information is a projection, and it'll be wrong in the direction of your anxiety. Do it with one other person if you can. Not to process feelings, though that's fine too. Specifically to check the second list. Read your costing item out loud to someone who knows the setting and ask whether it sounds like a cost or a nuisance. People are consistently better at making that call about someone else's situation than their own. Then do it again in October. Same 3 questions, 20 minutes. The October version is more accurate and considerably less enjoyable because by then you know what the year is. It's also the one that tends to change how the spring goes. And the limit, again, because I'd rather repeat it than have it get lost. This does not reduce your workload. Nothing in a 5-minute exercise reduces a workload. What it does is stop you from spending September's energy on the wrong problem, and it gives you language for the parts that need to travel up to someone who can move them. That's a smaller claim than most back to school advice makes. I think it's also one that survives contact with October, which the bigger claims generally don't. So here's the 5-minute version. Piece of paper, actual pen, sometime in the first 2 weeks. Write down 3 things that are going okay in your classroom, on your caseload, or in your part of the building. Going okay, not going well. The bar is deliberately low. Make each one specific enough that someone else could see it happening. Write down 1 thing you're tempted to overhaul, just one. The thing you've been circling since July. Then ask it the question. Is this costing me something I can name in minutes or in a specific outcome? Or is it just imperfect and visible? Be honest and be prepared for the answer to be that the thing you've been planning to overhaul all summer is not actually your most expensive problem. That happens frequently, and it's useful information, not a wasted summer. Then circle 1 micro move. 1 step, finishable this week, inside time you already have, not the overhaul. 1 step. That's it, 5 minutes, and it will do more for your first 6 weeks than a weekend of setup will. If you want to make it stick, put the paper somewhere. You'll see it in October because the October version of you is going to want to know what the August version was thinking. The last thing I'd say is this. If you do the baseline and the 3 things holding come easily and the costing item is obvious, that's a good sign, and it means your read on your own situation is accurate. If the 3 things holding are hard to come up with, I'd take that seriously and not as evidence about your competence. In my experience, it usually means you've been running without any feedback for a while, which is a condition, not a characteristic. And it's one worth talking to someone about. I'd like to hear what comes out of these, particularly if you run it and the thing you'd been planning to overhaul turned out not to be the expensive one, because that pattern is common enough that I suspect there's another episode in it. Next month, we're going to talk about the district. Not as a system that happens to you, but as a professional community you're already part of, made up of people who have names and jobs and constraints of their own. The question I want to take on is how you engage that without it costing you more than you have. And so whether your room is ready or you're still moving desks at 7 at night, thank you so much for starting your year with me, and we will see you next time.
Hey, before you jump back into your busy life, consider following @ThresholdLearningTLC on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and little bits of TLC on TikTok, YouTube, and Threads. If you enjoyed today's episode, consider sharing the podcast with a colleague. Personal recommendations are one of the best ways to help other educators discover the show. You can find little bits of TLC on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform so you never miss a new episode. You can also email us at podcast@thresholdlearning.org. We always enjoy connecting with fellow educators and champions for educational justice. For everything else, including our programs, resources, and professional learning opportunities, visit university.thresholdlearning.org. That's university.thresholdlearning.org. See you there.